Hey Cinders, and welcome back to Chicken Cindy's. We took a little vote, and it sounds like you guys want me to do some shorter videos on upgrading the Trouvaille. So today we're gonna put in the new bottom bracket and the new crankset, and we're just gonna do a nice how-to on the installation process and the tools you might need. This crankset was donated by Run Bike Mike, picture right here. Please go subscribe to his channel. He does some very cool stuff, some self-trail builds, upgrade videos right now. He's got a pretty cool Marin right now, and he's working on a Polygon as well. So some pretty cool budget bikes that he's working on. If you are new to the channel, I am Josh. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if this is stuff you enjoy, please consider subscribing to the channel. I'm gonna show you some different tools you're gonna need to actually install this. I've already got the actual bike down to the frame. So these are basically installations, and these are parts that I recommend to put on the Trouvaille to just make it more of a trail-worthy bike. Stock, it's not bad at all, but as you ride it more, you're gonna start breaking stuff, and as you break stuff, you're gonna want to replace it. And JG Bike have an absolutely terrific bang for buck crankset that comes with a chainring, comes with a bottom bracket, and all the necessary parts you need to swap out the old square taper style. As many of you know, we're building this bike up and actually giving it away. I'm not releasing details on how we're going to give it away yet, but we are going to give it away now to someone ideally before Christmas. So we're gonna have a couple different how-to videos popping up pretty quick. We're just gonna do the crankset today. So let's unbox this bad boy. Let's get it installed and take a closer look on how it actually looks installed. The really nice thing about this crank installation is there's really only a couple tools you're gonna need to do this. I highly recommend some grease. I just use Park Tool grease, and I got this fancy Park Tool grease dispenser. It's a grease gun, that's what I use. And then this is the actual tool I use. It is a foundation, and it is the tool for the bottom bracket itself for the installation, okay? You'll need a couple Allen keys to install the chainring itself, but there's another tool I'll show you in a little bit that you don't necessarily need, but it is kind of nice to have them to help with the chainring installation. We'll touch base on that in just a minute. So let's unbox this. This isn't a super big unboxing, just a couple parts in here. So I'll just show you what we got. We got a very nice purple oval chainring. The accent colors that's going on this bike is in fact purple. The bottom bracket, so let me unbox that real quick, or I guess unbag. So as you can see, just very nice external bearing driven styled Holotech bottom bracket. It's marked left and right, which is very nice. And definitely pay attention to this because there are specs and a very nice arrow that will show you, if I can find it, on which way to tighten these, which I'm not seeing the arrow. There's usually an arrow on this. Oh, there it is. It's right next to the actual, it's very teeny tiny, but you can see left with an arrow that way, and then right will have the arrow pointing the other direction, because the crankset is actually, as it spins, it could potentially loosen this, so they tighten different directions. So the crankset, which is, as mentioned, just a very nice JG Bike crankset. Got the drive arm, non-drive arm, and then basically this is like a compression bolt. You'll tighten this before you actually tighten the crankset itself, just to kind of snug everything up and together. It's very, very tiny Newton meters. Where is it? Yeah, 0.7 to 1.5. I don't know if you can read that on there. Hopefully you can, but very, very loose fitting to actually tighten it together, if that makes sense. So let's grease this bad boy up and let's install the bottom bracket. One of the main questions I always get while installing a bottom bracket is, what spacers do you use where, okay? So we're gonna measure the bottom bracket real quick, which I'm pretty sure it's a 73, but just to, oh, it's an 83. Okay, well, there we go. Oh gosh, it's a, boop, there you go, 83. So the good thing is it's still gonna be the same setup for the spacers themselves, okay? So let me grease this up. So to answer the age-old question of how many spacers do I use where, you will want 2 spacers on your drive side, which is the side that has your actual drivetrain on it. And as mentioned, you'll see a little right and left. So this is right, and the arrow is pointing left for lefty-loosey, but it's actually lefty-tighty. Do not rush this installation. This should screw in very easily. If for some reason you're having a hard time screwing this in, then you need to check your threads, make sure you're not cross-threading, because bottom brackets get destroyed all the time because of that. So you need to be very careful. I can get this hand tightened all the way in, and then I'll come back with a torque to actually get it to specifications, okay? So now you have one spacer left. That one spacer goes on the non-drive side. And this is Kent Trail specific, okay? And as mentioned, keep an eye. This one is righty-tighty, but it's kind of hard to see because of the angle of the camera, but it's not biting the way it needs to. So this is, as I mentioned, why you need to be careful, because the last thing you want to do is accidentally destroy your bottom bracket. And sometimes it takes a couple times. There, now it is finally going the way it should. But as mentioned, if this is the first time you're doing this, be very careful. Now that the bottom bracket is installed, feel free to torque it to the appropriate amount if you'd like to. If you don't have a torque wrench, it's pretty tight. It's like 40 to 50, I believe is what it says on there. Yep, 40 to 50 Newton meters. It's pretty tight. So get both of those down pretty good. The last thing you want to happen is your bottom bracket to start coming undone while you're actually on the trails. Before we can install the actual crankset, we need to install the chainring. So I just typically go around and get the bolts on. Just kind of hand tighten them for now. And I'm showing you the way with not using that the tool, just to show you that it can be done. I'll go back over and tighten these in a second, but typically once you start to get it tightened, the back won't actually spin like once you get it tightened. So if you look, I'm tightening it, but you can see that bolt isn't spinning. I think that tool comes in better use when you're trying to get the bolts off. See, that one actually just keeps spinning. So as mentioned, eating my own words a little bit there, but it's a good tool to have. And I mean, if you're gonna start working on your bikes yourself, you might as well have it. I have been told by a friend that a 36 tooth oval will fit on this bike. It's kind of a bigger sized oval ring for, honestly, a mountain bike in my opinion. You're kind of getting to like gravel territory with this, but again, it's a good size and it'll work. So now what we're gonna do is install this, and it's pretty simple to install this. So starting with, let's put some grease on this bad boy. 36 does fit. There you go. She's being a little stubborn to get in, a couple little love taps from a plastic hammer, rubber mallet, something like that. We'll get it in the rest of the way. So now we will install the other side. So let me flip the bike around so you can see that. Now to install the non-drive crank arm. That's a mouthful. So JG cranks have basically a bigger tooth that goes straight in the middle of that part of the crank arm that pinches. And this does have blue Loctite on it, so you shouldn't lose it. Now we do the pinch bolts. The pinch bolts are set at 15 Newton meters, and basically you do them kind of alternating to get equal pressure as you do it. One of my absolute favorite tools I've ever purchased. It's basically a smaller torque kit, and it's for bikes according to the description of it itself. But I have used this thing so many times for little parts like between stems and things of that nature. But I love having this. And this is a part that you probably want to make sure you torque appropriately, because the last thing you want to do is break this part. It kind of makes your brand new crankset useless. I'll do this till I start to feel just a little bit of resistance. Not a ton of resistance. But you just go back and forth to get in both the 15 Newton meters, because that's what this is supposed to be set at. And once the bolts are torqued appropriately, you're good to go there. One of the really nice things about this upgrade is it's a pretty simple upgrade. Tools you'll need to get the square taper bottom bracket off. There are 2 tools that you'll need to get that off. Crank arm extraction tool, and you'll need a square taper style bottom bracket removal tool, okay? There's a lot of how-tos on those on there, so I didn't want to include that in here, but that'll save you a lot of headache if you have a square taper bottom bracket, which this comes stock with, so just heads up, these are the tools you'll need, and another Allen wrench as well. So, the installation of this really only required 2 Allen keys, an 8 for the pressure nut, and then a 5, and the bottom bracket installation tool. This is just a foundation one off of Amazon. Pretty budget friendly. If I remember, I was like 10 bucks, give or take, so really not bad at all. Looks really good. I think the purple is gonna look absolutely stellar on this build. If you happen to just skip to the end, just a heads up, we are giving this bike away after it is entirely built. If you guys have any questions over the build as I go through it, but we're just gonna do a bunch of short how-tos. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and I think the next video will be drivetrain. If you don't want drivetrain, let me know in the comments what you'd rather see. But thank you everybody, take care, and until next time.